What's up, Sanisa, Superbad Estrada here, and I just want to give a huge special shout out to the relay. Thank you so much for all of the continuous support, and thank you for all of the support during and after and before every single fight.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, and now it's time for our weekend recap. First up is the fight that I think left a lasting impression on a lot of people. I'm talking about the fight between Senicia Estrada and Miranda Adkins. And I told you guys in the build-up of this thing that God bless Miranda's heart. God bless her courage for even taking on this fight, because she was going to be a fish out of water. 7 seconds into the first round, you guys saw what I was talking about. I mean, this thing didn't last very long, you understand. But you could see almost immediately that Miranda was very much out of place here, hesitant to come out of her corner, and in about 6-7 seconds, Senicia Estrada showed you what I was talking about. And this knockout, titillating as it might have been, was received with mixed reviews. There were those out there in awe of Senicia Estrada's dominance, her punching power, how exciting a fighter she is. And there were those out there who were critical of this matchup, saying that surely they could have found someone else for someone like Senicia Estrada to fight. And I think that those kinds of comments, those kinds of criticisms are understandable.
They are.
But short-sighted, because anyone familiar with the women's game knows that the pool of options for the girls is nowhere near as deep as it is for the guys.
On short notice, least of all.
I mean, in case you're not aware of this, it wasn't supposed to be Miranda Adkins that Senicia Estrada was going to be fighting. It was supposed to be Jackie Calvo, but Jackie Calvo had to pull out. I believe there was some kind of an injury. And Miranda, she stepped up to the plate. Very courageous, albeit ill-advised. That's how it happened. This is a situation to where the pool of options for the girls, especially in this situation, is already limited, and that's on a regular basis. But you factor in that we're in the middle of a global pandemic when there are travel restrictions, and that limits your pool of options even more. You've got to try and find someone who's available, and not just available, someone who's willing, and someone who can get there. Because in case you're not aware of this, we're still in the middle of a global pandemic, and there still are travel restrictions. In that situation, all you really can do is work with what you've got. And that's what Senicia Estrada did for all of 7 seconds. It was exactly what I predicted would happen once the opening bell rung. I mean, I never for 1 second thought that Miranda Adkins, given her very limited professional experience, belonged anywhere 50 feet from Senicia Estrada in a boxing ring.
I didn't.
But Miranda Adkins herself decided to take on this challenge, take on this risk, and this is what she got. I think that it's actually a blessing in disguise that the fight ended as abruptly as it did, and it didn't result in a sustained beating round after round that Miranda would have been unable to defend herself from, you understand. Better that you kill her quick than make her suffer, punishing her round after round. Because you may not be aware of this, but it really is those sustained beatings that have the most damaging effects. Boxing is a very dangerous sport, and a quick KO could change your life. But those sustained beatings, more often than not, those are what leave the longer-lasting effects in a fighter's life. And in this situation, given Miranda's unique circumstances, the fight lasting only 7 seconds, that's a blessing in disguise. Believe me, it could have been much worse. Senicia Estrada continues to be one of the hottest fighters, anywhere from 105 to 108, one of the most dangerous fighters, one of the most risky fights for a reigning world champion, anywhere from 105 to 108 pounds. And it's for this reason that I give Senicia very good odds to become a champion in the very near future. And let's just hope that that's the kind of fighter, the caliber of fighter, that we see her enter into the ring with next. I think there's still time.
Still enough time.
In 2020 to have Senicia make another ring appearance, and hopefully it will be against someone who's more adept to the task. I mean, that's basically saying that Senicia fought for all of 7 seconds in 2020.
Surely she can get back out there one more time
before the year is out. And I have a sneaking suspicion that this knockout, it's not just one for Senicia's highlight reel. I mean, I can see this easily going viral. And that in and of itself will lend itself to Senicia's notoriety, her marquee value, those aware of her, aware of what she can do and what kind of fighter she is. That's the silver lining here, folks. That Whether people are talking up this knockout or talking down this knockout, one way or another, people are talking. And Seniesa Estrada is one of those fighters who's going to make people realize these girls can be just as entertaining as the guys. They can get knockouts just like the guys do. And the more that the teeming masses, the boxing community at large, becomes aware of this and accepts this, the more we can see a pay increase for the girls, as that's long been a dispute in the boxing world, equal pay. In boxing, your pay really is based on your ability to put asses in the seats. And so long as Seniesa Estrada keeps dazzling the fight fans with her fast hands, her footwork, her in and out game, her combinations, her punching power, her ferocity, her aggression.
And it helps that she's easy on the eyes, too.
Oh, she's gorgeous.
She will continue to build momentum and tap into those Mexican-American fans, who have helped to make Canelo Alvarez one of the most notoriable fighters, if not the most notoriable fighter on this side of the world. So, congratulations to Seniesa Estrada for living up to my expectations. I told you Miranda Adkins was fish food. I told you Senesia's going to make short work of this girl, and that's exactly what she did. Hopefully, the next time we see her, it'll be against someone who's more adept to the task. It'll be against someone who's bringing something for Seniesa Estrada to win. Because if this is the kind of aggression that Seniesa shows in a fight where there isn't even a major title on the line, just imagine how hard she's going to fight when there is one on the line. Now we come to what was the main event, this same card. The fight between the highly touted up-and-comer, Virgil Ortiz, and the grizzled veteran, tough guy, Samuel Vargas.
What a beating.
Virgil Ortiz, this kid, almost immediately, you notice he's a strong puncher. You notice his power, that this kid hits like a fucking freight train, and he's only 22 years old.
He doesn't even have his grown man strength yet.
So just imagine what he's going to look like when he does. Virgil Ortiz's power is power that you can hear when he lands a shot on either the arms, the gloves, or if the shot lands flush, if the shot lands clean. Either way, you can hear the thunder in this guy's punches, and you can see it in how fighters react when he lands. But what blows me away the most about this kid really isn't even his power. I mean, there are any variety of power punchers out there, guys who can crack. What blows me away about Virgil really is his boxing and how he optimizes his power. What do I mean by that? I'll tell you what I mean by that. This guy isn't just some come-forward mauler swinging for the fences hoping one lands. This kid knows what he's doing when he takes a half step back to give himself enough room to add torque, to add velocity to the punch. His pivots, to get on the other side of a guy, attack him from a different angle so you can get around the guy's guard.
Jack Reese didn't like that shit.
I'm not sure why, as really was on Samuel Vargas to keep up with his quarry, that as Virgil Ortiz pivots to get to the side of you, it's on you to keep up with that guy, and for some reason Samuel was still facing the opposite direction. But that has more to do with Samuel and less to do with Virgil. Jack warned Virgil about this, and I reiterate, I'm not sure why. Back to the point, it really is Virgil's boxing, his footwork, the snap in his punches, the power in those punches, the aggression, the fact that he doesn't take a minimalist approach to boxing. He's not just looking to land a single shot to get the guy in trouble and then start teeing off. Virgil's a lot more prolific than that. In this fight, we saw the shotgun jab upstairs and the well-placed stab downstairs, breaking Samuel Vargas down. And how Vargas withstood some of these right hands, some of these hooks, is beyond me. This guy took a lot of punishment in this fight.
Ortiz drew blood in the first round.
Off of that shotgun jab that was rearranging Samuel Vargas's face. That accurate shotgun jab that Virgil Ortiz employs and doesn't abandon.
Vargas couldn't stay out of the way of that thing.
And Virgil Ortiz, you see everything that you look for in a prospect, everything you look for in a contender, everything you look for and expect from a champion. Speed, accuracy, power, ring IQ, footwork, sliding to the side of a guy to fire shots around his guard,
break through,
changing levels to penetrate the guy's guard, or optimize power to deliver the best shot you can from the most opportune angles, whether he comes in at a slight crouch to really drive his uppercuts, when he leans off to the side to fire a straight right hand down the pipe. Virgil Ortiz shows that he's more than just a strong puncher. He's a very good, balanced boxer. Virgil Ortiz's defensive prowess is admirable as well. I mean, make no mistake, he's not a defensive fighter. He's not an outside jabber moving laterally to keep a guy out. That's not the kind of fighter he is, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have his own brand of defense. He certainly does. He's not given very many, if any, shots away. You saw a very good head movement and upper body movement from Virgil Ortiz whenever Samuel Vargas did manage to throw a shot out there. Saw him take a half step back. Good judgment of distance and spacing to stay close enough to the guy that you can fire a shot and land it, but not so close that he can get off some of his. We really do see a lot of elite level qualities from Virgil, what is consistent with a world-class fighter. And that's where I think this kid is. But sadly, because he's in the welterweight division, I don't know that Virgil's ever going to get a title shot here. I'll go as far as saying that I don't know that Virgil is ever going to get those fights with those upper echelon fighters, those upper echelon welterweights, because it just so happens that this is a division that is dominated by the PBC stable of fighters. And we are all fully aware by now of their island policy. If they see no incentive in matching one of their champions against Terrence Crawford, then what reason would they have to match one of their other fighters against Virgil Ortiz? They don't want this kid making their fighters and their brand look bad. They'd rather not find out. They'd rather not take the chance. The truth is, regardless of what you think of Virgil Ortiz and regardless of what you think about the PBC stable of welterweights, one way or another, the network relationship is not there that would see this fighter fighting with those fighters. So don't hold your breath. As sensational a showing as this showing was for Virgil, and everything that it indicates, what he's ready for, it's not going to result in a fight with a Keith Thurman, or a Danny Garcia, or a Sean Porter, or a Yordenis Ugas, or a Sergey Lipinets, or any of those fucking guys that are on that side of the street. If anything, it's going to make the PBC distance their fighters even further from this guy. You see what they're doing to Terrence Crawford. You think they're not going to do the same thing to a kid who doesn't have a title?
I mean, a full-fledged world title.
So listen, I can care less what you think about a Thurman versus Ortiz fight, or a Garcia versus Ortiz fight, or a Porter versus Ortiz fight, an Ugas versus Ortiz fight, a Lipinets versus Ortiz fight, a Figueroa versus Ortiz fight. I can care less about your fucking fight predictions because none of those fucking fights are likely to happen.
And that's the cold hard truth.
It's entirely possible that Virgil Ortiz goes his entire welterweight campaign having never fought for a full-fledged world title, given where those world titles sit. Manny Pacquiao's got one, Errol Spence has got two, and Terrence Crawford's got another. And I'm not even sure that the people at Golden Boy would want to put Virgil Ortiz in there with Terrence Crawford anytime in the near future. Oh, maybe Virgil wants that fight, but I'm not sure that his handlers think he's ready for it. Not yet. You know, Terrence Crawford, he's not just a champion, he's ranked as a pound-for-pound fighter, one of the best in the wild.
I don't think Golden Boy's gonna hit the gas on that.
I mean, I know the relationship is there between Golden Boy and Top Rank. Sure, they work with each other, they have in the past, and they likely will in the future, but not for this fight. Virgil Ortiz ain't but 22 years old. Putting him in there with Terrence Crawford would be too much too soon. And that's Virgil's best chance. His only chance, as far as I'm concerned, at fighting for a world title in a welterweight division, because all those other fights, you know, Errol Spence, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, none of that shit is gonna happen.
None of it.
And you can't talk about today's welterweight division and not address the politics, because I don't know what fairy tale fucking world you're living in where everybody's fighting everybody. Everybody's not fighting everybody, and this is why. Let me tell you something. You've got quote-unquote boxing fans,
right,
saying things like Terrence Crawford, a 3-division champion, 2-time lineal champion, former undisputed champion in the junior welterweight division,
current champion,
a guy who's beaten and unseaten more active reigning world champions and top 10 contenders than Errol Spence. You've got quote-unquote fight fans saying things like Terrence Crawford doesn't deserve an Errol Spence fight. They want him to jump through hoops in order to get that fight.
Look at the screen.
So what do you think they'd want a guy like Virgil Ortiz to do in order to get that fight?
Donate his body to science.
Or cure polio.
Now, they already cured polio. They're going to ask him to cure COVID.
Then maybe he'll deserve an Errol Spence fight, because that's the kind of quote-unquote boxing fans you can find in the American boxing scene today. A lot of boxing fans who really seem more like a lot of suckers, a lot of fanboys, a lot of bandwagoners who'd rather see their favorite fighter not be in a fight, but he might lose.
So forget about a Spence fight
Ever
happening.
Virgil Ortiz might go his entire campaign as a welterweight and never get the chance to face Errol Spence for either of the 2 world titles that he holds. And he's going to face a very similar dilemma in the junior middleweight division, because it just so happens that the PBC has a stronghold on the belts there too. Did you forget that Jamel Charlo's the WBC champion? Jason Rosario is the WBA and IBF champion. Did you forget that? Did you forget what side of the street those belts are on? I'll tell you that Virgil Ortiz is one of the bigger welterweights in today's welterweight division. He's no small fry. He has the kind of physical dimensions to eventually grow into the junior middleweight division. But if and when that time comes, if those belts still are on the PBC side of the street, he's going to face the same fucking problem at 154 that he's currently facing
Him and Terrence Crawford.
at 147. That's the cold, hard truth. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but this is reality, folks. I know a lot of you guys out there are probably sick and tired of hearing me rag on the PBC, but if I'm doing it, it's because of how their business practices affect these weight classes. One end, you got a bunch of fighters who are happy to operate with complete impunity, oblivious to the existence of other top-tier, top-shelf fighters. They're more than happy to go their entire careers never testing their mettle against them. There's that, but then there are also the PBC's supporters, the PBC's fans, who will go on and on about how Crawford hasn't fought anybody good in the welterweight division, whilst simultaneously giving those fighters a pass to not fight him.
How's he supposed to fight somebody good when the good fighters won't fight him?
And you think that this won't affect Virgil Ortiz, a Golden Boy Promotions fighter, because the PBC and Golden Boy, they've got a remarkable fucking relationship, those two.
Right?
Oh yeah, they do business all the fucking time, right?
Right?
So look, I'm blown away at how good Virgil Ortiz is turning out to be, but the truth of it is, he's gonna hit a ceiling. He's gonna hit a wall at some point, because until the topography at 147 and 154 changes, the politics of boxing are going to have their role to play. The politics of boxing are going to affect what fights are being made available to him, the same way they affect Terrence Crawford.